Bartholomew Town is brought to you in part by the University of Rhode Island Online, Navigant Credit Union, the Audubon Society of Rhode Island, Newport Film, and Half Street Group.
Bartholomew Town.
Ian O'Neill of Deer Tick, great solo artist and a community leader here in Providence. Thanks for your time, and great to have you back on the show.
Thanks, Bill. Happy to be here.
So this conversation today was kind of prompted by the closure of yet another mid-sized music venue in Rhode Island, Askew. A lot of people remember it as Fat Squirrel, or back in the day, Century Lounge. And look, it's part of a pattern that we're seeing where, while yes, the Columbus Theater was bought by the Comedy Connection and they're going to do some stuff there. Rob Duguay actually has a good story on that.
Curious.
But yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
But this isn't a Rhode Island exclusive thing. It's become increasingly clear that the mid-size level venues and the artists that often perform there, it's a struggling moment. You've been out on the road. You just got back. Obviously, Deer Tick is an established band with a fan base, a festival act, a headlining act. You're often a support act for big artists. Like you're in a lane that is established and is viable. But what has been kind of your assessment of the changes that we've seen here locally?
Locally, it's like similar to what we're seeing on the road even. I think there's just less of an ecosystem for smaller and mid-tier, specifically rock bands. And like I think that like these clubs are associated with rock music. And it just seems like a very difficult time for to try to get people out to multiple events per week, specifically any other days besides the weekend. Yeah.
It's crazy to think that there was a time, like I know you were in Brooklyn, I was there, where a Tuesday show at, I don't know, Pianos or some DIY spot was packed. And now I don't know because I'm not there, but I can't imagine that it is.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think you've seen a lot of bands from the era of indie rock kind of slow down or break up or, move into solo territories, something more sustainable. But I think the biggest factor obviously has got to be a post-COVID world. Yeah. Like right out of the gate, out of the pandemic, things felt really positive and really like the first tour we did was a co-headline tour with Delta Spirit, and it was massive. It was great. And then I think as people kind of got that out of their system, it seems like people have settled into more domestic lifestyles, and I think inflation is a big thing for just picking and choosing what entertainment you're going to spend your money on throughout the year.
Yeah, and that's just such a death knell to music, which depends on, for bands, I mean, it depends on really, 5 nights a week minimum of being able to work, and it just creates this spiral that's not good.
Yeah, and it creates like now they're just, especially at the moment with the Columbus being closed at the moment, there's no besides the FET, I guess, there's not really any touring spots for bands to just kind of roll through town at the moment. Yeah. And that was already difficult beforehand because being so close to Boston and New York City, that this is always going to be a B or C market for a lot of acts. But a place like the Columbus, and to a degree the Strand for much bigger bands, because that's a pretty massive space, those places were kind of like beacons for national touring acts. But a place that was like the Columbus that was so great about that, and Askew, because a lot of touring acts did come through Askew, was just its size. And I think it just once you lose the 200 to 300 cap rooms throughout a city, it just kind of it puts shows into houses or warehouses, which is not a bad thing at all. But it kind of I don't know, puts the onus on the people running those spaces to make it financially sustainable for themselves. Yeah. And I think that's without, legal liquor sales and stuff like that to back up their the guarantees or whatever. It kind of, I don't know, it's an unfortunate situation we find ourselves in.
Yeah. I think with Askew closing, it's been interesting to see some of the reaction on mostly social media, but also people talking about it. There's also this sense of a loss of community that while, Askew is going to go do some of their promotions at Alchemy, and there's the community is not necessarily tied to a space. it is tied to a space. So the communities around acts or around events, those are also in jeopardy, and it just further creates isolation on a societal level when these spaces go away.
Totally. I think back to a time right when the Columbus opened, and bands like Rob Shavi or Smith and Whedon or myself, and we have another band called Happiness, like all of us would attend each other's events no matter what. Right. And so it created this like kind of community music scene where there was always a built-in fan base, and then like friends of friends of friends of friends would just be like, yeah, that's the place to go. That's where all the friends are. That's where an actual community, an actual scene was existing in like the mid 2010s or whatever. And I don't know. It's like so I do think that like a physical space that you can return to over and over again. I'm thinking about Aurora downtown. You know what I mean? Like places like that where like there are places that you wanted to be and your friends wanted to be. So there was like a healthy music scene where like these businesses were more sustainable.
Yeah. It's tragic to lose that, and you wonder, of course it ebbs and flows, but you wonder what the next iteration is out there, and where does it go to. I think DIY spots are, for me, they're my bread and butter, and they're kind of like the best thing in the world, but they're also the opposite of what you just said, because oftentimes they're gone as fast as they came about.
Yeah, they're like the last stand of Providence. Seems like the city goes through a cycle where like that's like the music community is like left with no other option but to do it for themselves. Yeah, which is great. It's a resilient city, and there's like, for a multitude of reasons, there's a ton of creative people here, obviously, and it's really attractive for that too. But yeah, I mean, we can't just leave it on them to host all of the music.
Something else that is, look, you need a donor class, you need a Trinity, you need a PPAC, you need the multi-million-dollar, big salaried executive director level of arts to be credible, to drive economic development. I mean, it's definitely fertile for downtown. There's no question. Without PPAC or Trinity, it would look a lot different. It would feel a lot different. There's not. This isn't to say that that's not important. It is. But we see grants or bonds that we just had, like the arts bond, and yeah, it's great for Trinity to fund Trinity and these types of organizations. But I feel like there's this disconnect. You even see it at PVD Fest. I was really critical of this because, I mean, that's a moment where the best shows that I saw at PVD Fest were all the DIY shows that were curated at skate parks and things like that.
That's how it was at South by back in the day too.
Totally.
That we were just talking about. Yeah, I think that there's a problem with that. I think that, I mean, obviously for the local government to keep downtown Providence attractive, they're going to have to pour money into those institutions to keep the Christmas shows going and stuff like that, which I think is great. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with that. But it would be wonderful if like there was some kind of model for such a creative landscape like Providence, like Canada has, where there's money that goes from the government into making records, going on tour, which like made bands from Canada it made it a lot easier for them to tour and to put out records. And I just think that like if there's going to be money, taxpayer money or whatever, being put into the arts, that it should be a little more equitable.
No question. Yeah, and that Canadian model has been effective. Canada has such a vibrant and a wide music community that is obviously of mega stars and superstars, but there are bands that are huge in Canada that nobody's ever heard of here.
Bartholomew Town.
Birds are disappearing from our landscape at a rapid pace. Over 1/3 of those breeding on Audubon Society of Rhode Island's wildlife refuges are in decline. Climate change has taken a toll on their migration, nesting, and food sources. While science is highlighting the problem, Audubon is working on real solutions with a plan to rapidly reduce their carbon emissions. The organization will be free of fossil fuels by 2030, with renewable energy powering Audubon's buildings, equipment, and vehicles. To shape our future, all of us must act. Learn more about repowering Audubon, their avian research, and how you can join their fight for climate resiliency. Visit asri.org/repower. Newport Film screens the latest, critically acclaimed documentary films year-round across Rhode Island. Like a film festival, Newport Film often gets early access to films before they're available online or in the theaters. Stay up to date on their latest screening events at newportfilm.com or on Instagram at Newport Film. Are you looking to advance in your career or explore a new field? The University of Rhode Island now offers a comprehensive portfolio of fully online programs designed to bring world-class education to you anytime, anywhere. Choose from a wide range of flexible, asynchronous programs in business and leadership, data, tech and STEM, healthcare and pharmacy, marine and environmental science, and more. With expert faculty and innovative courses, you'll gain the skills and knowledge to thrive in today's competitive world. Are you ready to take the next step? Visit uri.edu/online and discover how URI Online can help you achieve your goals. URI Online, learn anywhere with us. Half Street Group brings a new generation's perspective to leadership communication, strategic public relations, and digital marketing. Half Street helps organizations and leaders take control of their own stories and manage their reputations. They get results for their clients by focusing on audience, message, and culture, and by leveraging their decade-long relationship with media and opinion leaders in the Ocean State and throughout New England. Join me and Half Street Group founder and president Mike Rea for a conversation every month about news of the day, the hottest media analysis, and a look behind the scenes at how impactful leaders drive conversations. Learn more at halfstreetgroup.com. As Rhode Island's first ever member-owned credit union, Navigant Credit Union has been a staple in the local business community for more than 108 years. Today, Navigant is a $3.4 billion institution serving more than 136,000 members across 25 physical branch locations. But since its founding in 1915, the mission has never changed. Navigant Credit Union's team of financial professionals have remained committed to improving the financial well-being of the families, businesses, and communities they serve across Rhode Island. Learn more at navigantcu.org.
We do better in Canada and Toronto than we do as well in Toronto as we do in like Boston or New York.
Wow.
And it's like, it's always been that way, but I think that like, just like as a more equitable society in general up there, that they have more disposable income, it seems. I could be wrong. Sorry if I'm offending any Canadians, but it just seems like they're more gung-ho about, you know, putting their money back into the community.
Yeah. Well, there's something to be said for the holistic picture. I mean, we're in Trump 2.0 now, and it's not exclusively Trump 2.0 that has created this seemingly dystopian environment that we live in. And art, music, the esoteric, the mysterious and exploration of it is kind of, I don't even want to say it's an escape, because that's not really what it is. It's like it's an important lens for which society needs to be able to look through more than ever in these types of moments. And it feels like we're drifting further. We've gotten to a point where it's content. Everyone stares at their phone. Yeah. It's like, okay, cool. This person had a huge budget and paid, you know, or their parents paid $10,000 to blow them up on TikTok and Instagram. Yeah. And that's who you're going to see. Meanwhile, the community that's really asking questions and kind of shining the mirror back at society, that level of art, that's getting buried. Totally.
And I think like this goes to a larger conversation about people being in their own media silos. Like you look at, I mean, just like left-right politics, like we're here for a reason. And I think that even trickles down into like music media. Like there was a time, and it's very, very rare now, where like we would spend our time before tours like doing phone interviews with a local alt weekly throughout the country, you know, 50 different interviews or whatever, and it would, you know, get buzz going on the ground in those different cities. And I think the decimation of local news in general is like affecting local music. It's affecting like the ability for, you know, not just our band, but like, you know, bands who are just coming up now, especially, making it really difficult for them to like find audiences without using the internet. And as we were discussing before, like it seems like you're screaming into the void with like advertising on the internet, you know. You're just trying to let the people know who already know you that you're where you're going to be. And even that, because of algorithmic challenges, is like, it makes it difficult, you know?
Yeah. There was a time in Rhode Island where you had the Providence, Phoenix, super viable WBRU, who both played local artists in rotation, but also had homebrewed a nightly hour-long
and free concerts
that were awesome, which local acts would open up almost every time. Then WRIU, which still exists but doesn't have a transmitter anymore, they're online, but they played a role in this. So there was this ecosystem that was very real, paired with stapled posters on Thayer Street, and the
Brown did concerts.
Brown's concert series, exactly. URI had good concerts back in the day as well, and it just feels like it is gone for the most part.
Yeah.
And Motif does a decent job of doing what they
good
can.
On them.
Yeah, good on them for sure. They've tried to fill that void, but they're in that same kind of squeeze of local news where they can't put out an edition every week, and they can't be covering every show, and they can't review every interesting local piece of art that comes out, or a record or whatever. So it's weird.
It makes it almost like a deterrent to starting new music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I could imagine, like, there's obviously, like, Bandcamp has democratized music in a way that's really great. I've discovered a lot of things through that, and I know a lot of artists that have more sustainable careers just by selling their vinyl through Bandcamp and yada yada. But I think, like, it's a deterrent to like being, like, starting a band to begin with, or, like, you know, going out on your own to begin with, because you're looking out at the landscape of, like, there's no, like, system for me to travel through to get to the other side, or to try to make a career of this. Is like, that was, like, a possibility when we started out, and, like, luckily we kind of got in on the ground floor in a weird way, or, like, got in, like, right at the last second, it seems, because it was right before social media, like, really became the only way that, like, young people can promote their music or their art even, or, like, you know, anything like that. So yeah, I don't know exactly where I was going with this, but it just seems like it makes it more difficult for people to be inspired to live a life in the arts.
I agree completely. I can't imagine, other than approaching things from the Instagram lens, or maybe TikTok and YouTube, and certainly Bandcamp, I would agree, has really changed a lot and has provided for a democratized direct-to-consumer, mostly direct-to-consumer process that's amazing, and it feels like that's the place to be. But I can't imagine, like, being 16 or 17 right now, starting to write songs, like, feeling like this is getting somewhere and wanting to take it to that next level, because that track, like you said, there were always, like, okay, there still is, you could go out in The Voice or something like that, okay, but there was always, like, hey, if I can get a single reviewed on Pitchfork, or if I can get into Noisy on Vice, or if Brooklyn Vegan I can become a part of that ecosystem, there's going to be an awareness and a credibility built that allows me to maybe get traction on the Hype Machine, and then some people start calling, and then slowly but surely there's more and more people turning up that I don't know at the shows, and the merch is selling. I don't think you could do that now.
I don't know. Like, I honestly do. I don't mean to seem like an old man yelling at the sky or whatever, but like, I don't really understand how something like the way young people consume media at this point, and, like, you know, those are the people that you really want to like your music at least at the beginning. Is through things like TikTok, where I don't use TikTok, so forgive me, but it just seems like things are so randomized. Like, right. I can't. That it seems way more difficult to go through that process of, like, you know, diligence and hard work, because that's, like, the way that I saw it. Like, I was in a band called Titus Andronicus, which, like, they were lucky enough right before I joined the band to get a Pitchfork review that was really good, and, like, that really did help. Like, then especially, I don't know what the effect of that is nowadays, but I was, like, through myself, like, solo stuff before I joined Deer Tick, and then in Deer Tick, like, we always thought, and which was true for a very long time, that, like, diligence, hard work, and, like, just, like, literally having no backup plan was, like, enough, and, like, to get, if you worked hard enough, then you eventually would be in the right place at the right time. And I think that was really true for a long time. At least I deluded myself into thinking that, and, like, it worked out to some degree, you know, but I do think, I just don't see, you see some, like, you know, bands come up through, like, Stereo Gum and stuff like that, but, like, it's just rarer and rarer. And especially because I don't think that, like, the general public or fan base looks to music journalism the same way they used to. I think, like, they look to, I don't know, personal recommendations from, like, people they admire. I don't really know. But that's the thing, is, like, it just seems like the music journalism ecosystem is also suffering, and it's also getting smaller, and it's also getting like more and more like lean, like Condé Nast buying Pitchfork and selling it to GQ or whatever, you know, stuff like that, where it's just like these places have to become more and more selective about what they cover. And I think it doesn't necessarily put its like finger on the pulse of what's actually happening in city to city.
Totally. And you wonder if the underground press, whatever that is, whether it's new media, zines, if there's some chance for that to change. And kind of go back to, I've been kind of fascinated by like the early days of Def Jam, where literally they concentrated on a city, you know, New York, and then Philly, and then Boston, and they just went into each city and, all right, who does all the things that you just described, the alt weekly, but also who's the influencer on the corner of this block, who's got a zine, who's got a radio show on Temple University Radio, and attacking it very painstakingly. I wonder if that can, in a new way, kind of resurface, where it's very grassroots. It's almost like grassroots politics, where it seems impossible, like you're pushing the boulder up the hill, and then the next thing you know, Bernie Sanders comes along. Yeah.
No, I think I certainly think that that's possible, and I think we need to find a way, or, you know, people smarter than me need to find a way to marry the idea of like regional and local music, because I think that like what the internet's done is it's like kind of taken like the whole like, oh, the Portland music scene or the New York music scene or Austin, Texas, or Providence. I mean, Providence, the funny thing is like there is still a thing here that is super specific to Providence that like has influence from like the 90s to now. And I think that like the weirdness of local music is really a beautiful thing. And because the internet has made everything completely national, whether it's politics or like who you're supposed to listen to or like what your music is supposed to sound like, that like Providence is a good example of that. Like beneath all that, there is local sounding music. And I think that that's like something super special about Providence, but I think it's also something that's probably true about every city that we're just not seeing.
Completely agree. It's like someone once introduced me to the theory of the island theory. So Jamaica and what happened with reggae there, and how or you can make an argument it's not literally an island, but New Orleans, like places that seem disconnected or pre-internet were disconnected from a globalized picture, came up with not only great music but had a corresponding sound that was like that was unique to that place, and also each artist or each song or each note impacted the next one in a way that just kind of created a specific thing. Providence totally has that.
Totally. And I think like somebody just needs to figure out how to like highlight that while we're living through the social media age, that like like we need to like shine a light on these different cities like strengths. And I think that would help with, you know, promoting local music scenes and like back to our first point, and like therefore like supporting, you know, smaller size venues that are like the lifeblood.
Yeah, no doubt. There's also, we were talking offline about the big ticket items, which is, you know, the Bruce Springsteen, Taylor Swift, or the major festival, which certainly helps smaller artists and mid-sized artists a lot, but even that's a little different. But then there's like, so one of the biggest acts of the last, I don't know, year or whatever is Chapel Roan. And I've listened to it. I think there's actually some amazing things happening there. And I'm not going to say that I would go see Chapel Roan, but I was like, oh, this is really great. This is an interesting person that has kind of exploded onto a national stage. And then the Grammy nominations came out, which I pay little attention to, but happened to be scrolling through it. And Song of the Year came up. And I realized that by reading that, they didn't write the music that has, so now I'm questioning, is this astroturfing? I mean, it's still a real artist. You don't have to write your own music to be a real artist.
Of course.
But it's not the same thing as, oh, this person from the Midwest blew up locally, blew up regionally, blew up nationally, blew up globally, when you have a product that has the corporate interest and the introduction of a writing team to create it.
Yeah.
It's different.
Totally different. I think there's positives to be said about both of those things. Like, I think that we came up in a time where it was important that the person singing the song wrote the song to a degree. I think it would just kind of gave like the whole package more gravitas in a weird way, where like the personality of the person who wrote the song is also the artist. So like if you're relating to the song, then you're relating to the person that you're seeing singing it, you're relating to the person that you're going to see play the song. But yeah, I mean, like there's also a lot to be said about the greater pop industry.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I think that, let me start that over again. There's something to be said about, like, you know, a team of writers coming to the rescue of a song and like creating the perfect pop song. I think there's something really wonderful and beautiful about that.
Mm-hmm.
Like my son loves Chappell Roan, but he also loves Lady Gaga, who I know writes a lot of her own stuff. But I've also, like, I don't know, co-writing can be a really special thing too. Like I've done that with our friend Rafay, and I don't know. It's hard to say. I think it's a very different experience to co-write with somebody or have somebody write something for you that's supposed to, you know, be of your personality. But I also think it can be done effectively too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Over time, it's clearly been done effectively. But I guess my take was, oh man, here's what I thought was I don't know where Chappell Roan's from, Nebraska or whatever it is. Like, here's a local artist that had been doing this for 15 years or whatever. Chipping away at it. And then all of a sudden, these songs got discovered. It was actually still a credible thing, no question. It's still an interesting and important moment musically, but just feels a little different when the support system around the artist also includes someone literally not co-writing, but writing songs and providing them to the act.
Yeah, that's a difficult conversation. It's like, because it does, like, part of their story is that they have been at this for a very long time, and that they have been chipping away at a career for a super long time. So that does kind of like complicates the narrative, and I think that nowadays, at least in my experience, the narrative around an album cycle or a singer or a pop star or even an indie rock band is like becoming as equivalent in importance as the music itself, which is like a super strange experience.
No doubt. The economic piece, as you're out on the road, we were talking offline that, you know, again, going back to that idea of the mega artists and more traction or more dollars being spent. In a moment where people have limited dollars, they're spending more of it on big ticket items and less on semi-large mid acts and younger acts. What's your take on that? Yeah,
I think that's something that we within our band, but also within, like, you know, our music community at large, have been like kind of like noticing is that these once a year there'll be this massive tour that's announced, whether it's like Zach Bryan or Taylor Swift or Bruce Springsteen, or, I mean, even our friends Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats, they're doing a co-headline tour with My Morning Jacket, or they just did maybe. But what we've noticed is that, or what we're like kind of like, because everybody's kind of analyzing this from different angles, is that it seems like people will, you know, spend $2,000 to go to one of these massive concerts at Gillette or whatever. You know, you got your cost of babysitter, because like these are aging fans too. Got your babysitter cost, got your dinner cost, drinks before, whatever, drinks there, and you're looking at like $2,000 for like, you know, but you're getting this massive experience at this huge concert venue. And it seems like right now a lot of people are opting to do bigger things less amount of times per year. So, and like I think that's even evidenced in all these co-headline tours, like My Morning Jacket, Nathaniel. We're doing one next year. It's not announced yet, but it just seems like we've had to find creative ways to compete. So like, you know, doing big co-headline, like getting into bigger rooms. So I don't know, and like that but that goes to this conversation because it seems like elevating into bigger rooms by doing co-headlines or just being in a bigger room because you're a bigger band, it seems like more people want to go to those spaces, and I don't know why that is yet. But I mean, I think there's a lot to be said about that, and there's a lot to be said about like people wanting a grand concert experience where there was a time not too long ago where they would pay $20-$30 to go to like a 500 cap room, you know, 10 times a year, and it just seems like people don't have either the money or the appetite to be out as much as they used to as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. Somebody that I think you know Brad Krieger, right? Over at Big Nice was something. I think he would be okay with me speaking about this. But we were talking, I don't know, a month ago here. He performed here at the Loft.
Sweet.
We did a show together. It was like we were talking about it after, and his assessment was that local shows haven't evolved. Or maybe this, I'm putting words in his mouth, but my takeaway is that local shows haven't evolved in a way that meets people's attention spans. And what used to be the 40-minute set for the local band, which turns into 47 or 52 by the time somebody tunes and jokes, inside jokes and this, that, and the other, 25 is more than enough. And I've been thinking about that more and more and like trying to recreate what the presentation is for local music, where if there's 3 bands playing together, maybe it shouldn't be 3 hours of music. Maybe it should be closer to an hour and a half, just because people, maybe that brings more attention.
That's a good point.
I don't know, but I wonder if, and it's sad that you have to do that, but yeah, maybe that's part of it as well. The presentation of local music could change and borrow more from like hardcore.
Yeah, totally. I think that's like local music when I was growing up was like if you played more than 20, and I like was playing like in punk bands and stuff like that. So like if you play more than 20 minutes, you're crazy. You know what I mean? But there's 2 sides to that. I think like what you have going on here at the Loft is a good model in that like it's a super like curated idea. And I think people are attracted to that. Like the same way, the reason why I think they're attracted to the Newport Folk Festival is because they kind of know what they're going to get, and that is like something that's been considered. I think that's potentially successful, but like in our case with Deer Tick, I'm always in favor of playing shorter sets.
Yeah.
And like that's just me. I just feel like it's like it can be more effective to like, you know, get your point across with less, you know, trim the fat or whatever. But we also have almost 10 records now, and we have fans from who have discovered us at each point of those records.
Yep.
So we have a lot to cover. And then like there's also things like when somebody pays $40 or $50 for a ticket to a show like that, and you're only playing an hour. Like there's some bands I know that like are headlining tours, like bigger spaces than us, but they have one record. So they play for an hour, but you're still paying $50 for the ticket. Right. And it's just like some people feel ripped off by that too. So we have to find the middle ground. But I think there's definitely something to Brad's point about you know, accounting for the ever dwindling attention span.
Which is sad, but maybe something to think about, and changes the model of what a night at a venue like an Askew or something like that looks like. Maybe there's another piece to it that isn't just, all right, 4 bands starting at 9 until 1. Maybe there's something else introduced. I don't know what that is, if it's other performance comedy or whatever, or something else. But
that's
I don't know.
And I think like one thing that maybe why the model of venues like Askew, or where it's like a bar-based model, one thing that might be making the show suffer is that a lot of places like that will ask you to play for 3 hours. Yeah. And like I've done a couple of shows like that here in Western Mass where they're like, it's kind of like a dinner crowd type thing. Yeah. It's like, I don't want to play for 3 hours.
Dream Away Lodge?
Dream Away is, there's another place out there that I played where they really wanted me to play super long. Yeah. Dream Away is always great, and we can do kind of whatever we want there, you know. But yeah, man, like, but there is something to be said about like, I don't think people want to sit through 3 hours of like original music, really. And like, that's not to say like, I mean, like personally, if I was going to go see, I've seen Springsteen play for 4 hours, which was crazy. But like even like seeing Bob Dylan or somebody like that, like he's not playing for 3 hours of original music. And I just feel like because of the need for bar sales, that like, and this model of like running venues based on like making your you know, bottom line at the bar, that like they ask you to play till midnight or till 1 to keep people in there. And it's like, I don't know if that's keeping people in there. Yeah. It might be driving people out at this point.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's something that I'm experiencing because I just stopped drinking altogether in like 2017. Like I occasionally, I'll like have a beer or whatever, but like basically I just don't drink. So I have that lens where I'm like, I'm seeing less and less alcohol consumption by certain, especially maybe I'll use the word discerning younger people.
Sure, yeah.
And it's a fascinating thing to wonder, all right, well, how do these places make money? I think we were just down in Brazil, and this venue we played at was pretty big. It was like comparable to the Met, and they sell juice. They sell like not food that you wouldn't want to eat, like food that you'd actually want to eat. And it felt like, okay, this is a place you want to be at, and it doesn't just have to be beer
or a black box with like beer sold in it.
Totally, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, like I see we were talking about that place Myrtle, and I think that like there's also something to be said about like being an interesting space, you know what I mean? Like I think that like the rock clubs of yesteryear probably aren't going to appeal to a Gen Z crowd who like is, I don't know, just seems like a dated vibe in general. And like, a lot of people are opting not to drink, so that's I mean that's like a whole another conversation that I'm not even sure like at least the economic side of it that I'm not even sure I'm qualified to ruminate on, but but it's weird. I mean, like I guess like we just have to find ways, like you do here at the Loft, or like the Folk Fest does, or whatever, or like Myrtle with like being an interesting environment. Is that we have to find ways to like curate spaces and experiences that like make it worth people's time and make people want to be there. You know what I mean? And I think that might be the reason why you're seeing places like Dusk and Askew close. Is like it's difficult to get people out to these things, and we just need to like give them a better experience. Maybe, I don't know.
I know. And I love Dusk. I loved going there, and there was a certain environment. There was a certain thing that happened
I
at
really
Dusk.
I
miss Dusk a lot.
Yeah.
But a couple of years ago, I did a show. Dan Blakesley and I booked a show there, and we were like, "This is going to be great." And he can draw well in pretty much any town in the Northeast, and so he was headlining. I was support, and we're like, "This is going to be great." And Rick over at Dusk, we're like, "This is a cool lineup." We had some other locals and stuff. Like, this is going to be great. We promoted it, posters, radio stuff, everything you could think of, and there were some people there. It wasn't like a disaster, but afterwards, I remember we were standing around and we're like, not the right room for Dan Blakesley and Bill Bartholomew at all.
Yeah,
like
it's a rock club.
This is a rock club. And so why are we and so there's also like a curation element that really has to be thought of. And Dusk, there are bands that are perfect for Dusk that just live still, probably the music still resonating back and forth between the walls because it was such but rock clubs aren't great for folk artists. Experimental acts don't necessarily fit in with venues for folk artists, and hip hop. Where does that fit in? So we're almost in this like where it has to be curated either on a nightly basis or, like you said, on an environmental basis. Yeah,
that's curious. I mean, because Dusk is like there was no better place to see a rock band or a punk band.
Totally.
But yeah, I mean, like, and that's like one of the things that was the upstairs of the Columbus was so perfect for is like if you're going for like a viewing, listening experience. Like I saw Michael Hurley there, and there was no better place to see Michael Hurley. I saw Michael Hurley play at the Met. No offense to the Met, but it was not the best, not as good. You know what I mean? Because like it's just a different experience. But yeah, I don't know. Those are questions that people need to start answering, I guess.
Yeah, somebody with economic expertise as well that can crunch numbers. And I do think there's like you said, the Canadian governmental piece. You don't want government controlled music, but that's not what's happening in Canada either. They do control things like the airwaves, certain percentages of hours, quarter hours or whatever it is has to be Canadian music. And it gets a little hands-on, and some people might not be up for that here, but there's a lot that can be done. I don't understand why Providence hasn't coordinated with Austin, learning from they have an office for music in a governmental office. I don't know if there's anything to learn there, but I've never heard anybody say, hey, let's have this conversation. It seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like, I think that, like, bringing people in and having it like an office for even like local entertainment, like when it comes down to like talking about the PVD Fest, there's like so much acrimony over that, and it's because I just think like, I have no offense to the mayor, but like you need people who are involved in that kind of thing to bring in their expertise on like what makes a really good festival.
Yes. And
not just like, I don't know, not somebody outside of that field's idea of what makes a good festival.
100%. Lastly here, appreciate your time and talking about this. I think this is so important for a lot of people to hear from you. Just from an artistic standpoint right now, are you feeling good about the work that you're making with the band, with the bands, I should say, with your solo stuff, with your visual? Yeah,
I mean, Deer Tick we are about ready to start writing a new record that we've been ruminating on. It's kind of a concept album, hopefully, and it's going to be about some local stuff, so it'll be
cool.
I think good for Rhode Islanders to hear that. But yeah, I think we have a totally renewed sense of purpose in that, like, we are just winding down like 2-year album cycle, and then now we have a pretty clear vision for what we're working on, and I think it's going to be pretty interesting.
Amazing.
But yeah, feeling great. Feeling more inspired to write music recently than I have been because we've kind of been in like, basically tour forever mode, which is not super conducive to being super creative.
Yeah.
But having been home for parts of the summer and, kind of just being a stay-at-home dad, both kids are in school, so I get some time to write some music at home alone.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, that's like treasure time in your whole pie of family life, band life. It's got to be treasure time, I would assume.
It's great. Being home is inspiring.
Yeah. Ian O'Neill.
All right,
the
Bill.
great Ian. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You want to talk about longevity? Take a look at Navigant Credit Union. As Rhode Island's first ever member-owned credit union, Navigant Credit Union has been a staple in the local business community for more than 108 years. That's right. Today, Navigant's a $3.4 billion institution serving more than 136,000 members across 25 physical branch locations. But since its founding in 1915, the mission has never changed. Navigant Credit Union's team of financial professionals have remained committed to improving the financial well-being of the families, businesses, and communities they serve across Rhode Island. Learn more at navigantcu.org. I got a great education at the University of Rhode Island. It's something that I use every day in all of my work. And now the University of Rhode Island, if you haven't heard, they're offering a wide array of programs online. That's right, URI Online. Check it out at uri.edu/online or give them a call, 401-874-5280. I can't thank the University of Rhode Island enough for the outstanding education that they provided me. They're one of the best universities in the Northeast, public or otherwise. Give them a call, 401-874-5280. That's 401-874-5280, and learn about the University of Rhode Island online. Hey, thanks for stopping by Bartholomew Town. For more content, follow me on Instagram at Bill Bartholomew.